Hello and welcome to the Cyber1 YouTube channel. My name is Ray, and in this video, part 15 of the R2D2 build, we're going to look at the interface arm and the gripper arm. So laid out on the table here, I've got the interface arm. Now I've still got some painting to do, so this part in particular won't be glued in because I need to pull it out and paint it, and the weather here in Australia has actually gone rather cold, too cold for painting. So let's start working our way through. So the end here is very simple. There's 3 holes in here. I've actually drilled them out to 1.7 mil, and we just put a bit of filament in, and that allows us to line it up and push it together. Now we can either weld or glue that together, and I'm thinking I might glue today. I do quite often plastic weld. Let me just pull that apart. So I've got some super glue which I'm going to use. Now, while that sets, this piece here was actually printed as 2 parts, and I lined it up in the vise and then plastic welded and then filed back to make it nice and round again. So that part is now pretty much complete. You may notice there's a hole in the end, and that's for filament to go into. So we can use a length of filament which then pokes into that hole, and I may have to open that hole up again, and that will then run up and down this channel. Now the little parts here act as threads on like a screw, and they line up in this channel and cause this to twist as it goes. And you can see here a path for the filament to follow through and out the hole. There's actually 2 holes through, which allow it to be bolted to a part on the end here. Before we get too carried away with that, I think what we need to do is actually get it together. Now, something else that might be of note is on the ends here, you just get some more. On the ends here, we've got threads, and that's for this piece here. So when they're together and lined up properly, that threads in and locks into place, and that will stop this from coming out. So let's start getting some of this together. The easiest way I found to do this is to actually 3D weld it, but to make sure it's all in the right position before we do that, I'm going to use some cable ties. So I'm going to temporarily screw this together. Now I'm going to thread this in and screw this up. And that makes sure everything is in alignment internally. It allows that to pull in and out with relative ease. And then we'll use these cable ties to make sure nothing moves. Now this could be glued, but I'm going to use welding because I can sand it flat and give me a nice smooth finish for when I do get around to painting. And then this piece will glue on the end here. So let's get the vise out and do the 3D use the 3D pen to weld that together. Okay, so we'll turn on the 3D pen. This is set for 220 degrees as I'm using PTG. Okay, so that's one side done. Just checking to make sure that still moves okay. It does jam up a bit when I tighten the vise up. But I need the vise reasonably secured so that it doesn't fall out when I'm welding, which it did before. That's pretty much welded up. I can now remove these cable ties. This still moves in and out without too much trouble. And I can just weld up those sections where I had the ties. Now there is a bit of a groove in here, which I don't think I'll put any plastic into. The next trick with this will be to clean up the weld. That'll be a combination of sanding, maybe scraping with a sharp edge to bring it back to being smooth, and clean up this edge or the weld mark print marks in this area. So you can see there's a few minor blemishes, but they'll clean up quite easily. Let's clean up the end of this. I found this drill set to be very useful. It's got both left-hand and right-hand drill bits in here. So that's the 1.7 bit. And that fits in there nicely. I'll just cut this end off. Okay, so let's just get this camera back. Move this out of the way. And we now have this so that we can push it and pull. Now, because of the way it's set up internally, it will actually spin the data port on the end, or the data probe. So there are some markers on this, and I think I might have to pick those out in a darker paint when I paint that up eventually, so that it's easier to see rotating. Alright, let's pull that apart again for now, because this filament needs to be glued in. Alright, and we'll give that time to cure. So while that's curing, let's start building up some of these other parts. Actually, what I should do is lock those nuts in place. So there are 4 M4 lock square nuts slot into these holes. So I will need my 3D pen back on. Back onto these two bits. This one mounts in this orientation inside the body of the robot. These two holes are for the mounting screws for it. This piece then pokes through that, and it has the small hole to the top. Then this piece mounts onto here, and this is for our servo mount. So we can actually put this one on here first, and that's the smaller screws. These smaller screws, by the way, are M4s. And they are 14mm long. You could get away with 16mm here as well if you needed to. So the idea behind this is the filament runs up through the middle, will go through this hole and come out here, and will be operated by a servo arm. That servo arm is a MG90. This is an MG90D, and that slides in like so, and then we can put our screw down to hold it. Let me just check the length of this screw. Yeah, it's right. So this is just a standard servo screw. Okay, so we have this horn adapter and this servo horn. That slots into the back there. Now I could probably put some glue over that, but I found it wasn't necessary. I'll just set up my servo tester. Set it to 1500, which is the middle of the servo travel. Now I can pull out this screw. That's moving quite nicely. This piece slots on. Now this piece goes over this little knob on the horn adapter, and this was printed in TPU, and that just sits on there. It has a small hole on the end, and the idea for that is, if I can get this to focus, so a small hole on the end as well as a big one at the back, and then the filament just pokes into there with a little bit of glue to hold it in place. And won't do that until it's actually mounted inside the robot, and at that point I can trim it to the right length and glue it in. Okay, so this will fit into here, and this will have another servo on it. This is a MG996R servo. Once that's on there, this linking arm, which is printed in TPU as well, links between that point and the servo arm. So let's get this all set up, ready to go. So I have actually on this one installed the rubber vibration mounts and put the grommets, or the metal cylinders in through that, which holds it in place, and that's mostly to help eliminate vibration. These screws then go through those. Make sure it's seated all the way down, or the screws won't reach. So at 1500, now the original screw for this has gone missing, so I did find another screw that would fit. It was a M3, and it's a reasonably short screw, but this one is actually got an Allen key. Now, this horn was the type that had the 4 bars on it originally, and I cut 2 bars off. The 2-bar one that comes with them is just a little bit too big for this job, so by cutting those off it fits in quite nicely. Now the space here is taken up by the body of the robot when this gets installed. And I'm not seeing this go 90 degrees. I may have to adjust the position of my servo horn a little bit. But I can do that when I get it into the body of the robot anyway. So what I'm going to do is actually adjust that other servo, and I can trim off some of the excess filament that I'm going to use for the push-pull. So this is all the way back now. That's all the way back there. So I'm going to trim it back here. Now this probably won't pull it back out, but it should push it. So if I put that on the end, and it's definitely gonna, I'll probably have to put some lubrication in there. There is a tight spot in there. I don't want to glue this one on until after it's painted. That'll make it a bit too hard, and this piece here just pushes in like so. Well, that's the bulk of the assembly of this one done anyway. So I'm just going to pull this apart. I'll take this over, ready to put it into the robot, and I'll get the other bit ready to work on as well. Okay, so this is the gripper arm parts. Now I've already welded these two pieces together. They printed like the other one, and I've given it a reasonable amount of cleanup. This is ready for me to undercoat and paint, but the weather has turned too cold for that, so I'll be putting it on for now, but I'm going to have to pull it off down the track to give it its paint job. This one also prints as two separate parts, so there's the long arm and this section of the gripper, and then there's a shorter piece, and again I've already welded it on. It has a hole down through the middle for filament to run, and it's got a key in it that keys into that one so that it pushes in. That will be when all completed and welded up, or painted anyway. I'll glue that in, and it's reasonably firm in there at the moment. Now I've got a short length of filament which I've already cut to roughly the right length, and I have this piece on the end which is printed in TPU, and that one is part of the mechanism for the gripper. So I'll just feed filament down through there for now. And what we have is inside the two gripper arm parts themselves, we have this little slot with a knob, an opening on it, and that's where this fits in. But before I do that, let's get the pivot screws in first. Now these pivot screws are M3 by 12mm long. They basically cut their own thread into the body of this claw. It doesn't go all the way through to the other side, so there's no nut to go on it. Because it is into some reasonably thin plastic, we don't need to do it up too tight. So what we're going to do here is push the little knob part of the TPU into its mating hole and slot. We'll do the same with the other one. And once they're both in, we can set it over those pivot points, and that way when we push the filament they open and close. Just gonna separate that for a bit. This is the top part, sits over the top, and I'm just using these 4G by 12mm long screws, and that will secure the top of the clamp in place, or the gripper in place. And this one's easier to see operating as the filament goes in and out. Okay, so let's move on to our next parts. We'll start with this one. This takes the servo. This is in this case I'm using a 5523MG 180 digital servo by JX Servo. These aren't too bad a servo. If I had another spare, I'd probably swap out the other MG 996R servo that I've got in the other one. Again, I have got the vibration isolation boot on each end with their pins to go in and hold them. Just to help reduce the noise a little bit. Gives it a better grip as well with the screws. And then this one, I think we'll put our nuts into here first. And we'll fill it up with molten PETG plastic to stop those nuts from falling out. There's nothing worse than trying to put these in while you're in the robot itself and the nuts keep falling out. Okay, so small hole at the top is for the filament. You'll note that the hole is in the middle on this side and at the top on this side. Let's get this on. So again, these are the 14mm countersunk screws. We'll go from this side. Let's get our small servo. Now it's easy to tell which way the servo goes on. There is a slot for the wires to come out. These screws are of course the screws that come with servos. And they go into the holes that were in the 3D print. Now with this one I did have to trim the tip off the end of the horn so that this would fit. Again, this is an MKIII servo. So very similar to the other side with the Jerde arm. And again, we've got this TPU printed hook part. The filament will poke into the hole in the end and will eventually get glued into place. Can't glue it into place until such time as it's mounted, because this has to feed through the body and then this goes on. So this will feed through there. That will feed through there, but before that it's got to go through. This has got to be mounted on the body of the robot, and then this feeds through. Actually goes, front will be this side. Alright, so these two screws, as with the other half, 20mm long M4s. So like the other side, this was a 4-way servo arm. I cut 2 of the arms off. Set it to halfway. Looks about right. Now I might put that one on this way, and I might turn the other one around a bit. 180 degrees. See if it works better. Didn't seem to want to lift the arm as high as I would have liked, so this might work better. No, it definitely needs to go the other way. Not coming all the way up, but I think if the servo was driving to the yeah, maybe not. It's about as high as it's going to go. But that seems to be working, so that's a good start. So a paint job, and we can mount these into the body. What I might do is I'll mount these in earlier. Yeah, I'll mount this in and see how we go. Have I got that actually going the right way? But I'll get these mounted into the body of the robot and then we'll take a short video clip of them working. And we'll hook it up to the servo loom inside the robot as well. If you like to see when the next video comes out, don't forget to click on like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. It's a form of support that helps the channel a great deal and costs you absolutely nothing. If you'd like to support the channel further, I do have both Patron and YouTube membership, and you can join my VIP patrons GoLucky, Coburnicus and Jeff Jerde, and my builder patrons Elmorales 45, Andrew Cardone, Airgar69 and James Kelly in helping to support the channel. All my patrons and YouTube members get these videos a week before they're publicly released on YouTube. If you've got any questions, drop into the Discord or leave a comment below. If you leave your question in Discord, if someone else knows the answer, they can answer that question for you. And I do have a few members who have a look at that regularly. And we'll see you in the next video.